Hey everyone, in this video we are going to talk about a very simple library called SQLite. Why simple? Because you can simply use the SQL commands to manipulate it, and secondly it is serverless. So let's get going. In order to use SQLite, I have created a Python project in my PyCharm IDE, and the first thing that you need to do in order to use SQLite in your Python project is to import the SQLite library. So you simply have to run the command import SQLite. Once this is done, next thing is to create an empty database or to connect to already created database. For that, you have to create a variable. I'm going to call it connection, and then you have to use this SQLite 3 object and call its connect method. Inside this connect method, you have to pass the name by which you want to create your database, and you have to make sure to add the .db extension to show that it is a database file. Now let's go ahead and simply run the project, and you can see that it has successfully executed. If I go to my project directory, you can see that a test DB has been created. Now in order to manipulate with this database, you need to have a cursor. So let's go ahead and create a cursor. I'm gonna use this connection variable which I've just created to call its cursor method, and it is going to return us a cursor object. So once the cursor is created, now I'm going to use this cursor to create a table inside my test.db file which is currently empty. So I'm going to use this command cursor.execute, and inside this function you have to pass the query for creating the table. So you can see that it is a simple SQL query where I am creating a table by the name pets, which has the following columns. The first column is the pet ID of the type text, which corresponds to a string value. Then we have name, kind, gender, then we have age, and the last one is the owner ID. So once you execute this command, it is going to create an empty table by the name pets inside your database. Now let's talk about how you can populate this table with data. So actually there are two ways of populating the table. Either you can insert the data manually inside the table, or you can import the data from any other file inside the table. So we are going to see both of these methods in this video. So let's see how you can actually manually insert the data inside the table. For that, I have created a list called pet data, and inside this list I have two records. Now in order to manually insert the data inside your table, you have to use cursor.execute many function because it is more than one row that we are going to insert inside it. Then inside the execute many function, you have to write the command insert into, then pass the table name which is pets, and then you have to pass value, and after the value you have to add exactly the same number of question marks as the number of columns inside your table. So right now inside the table I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns. So I'm gonna insert 6 question marks separated by comma inside it. Okay, so this is the first part of the execute many function. Now in order to actually pass the values inside these question marks, you have to come out of the double quotes, and I am going to pass this list that I've created, and this list actually contains the data in the same column as the column of the table. Okay, so this is going to insert 2 rows inside the pets table at once. And in order to check whether the data has been successfully inserted or not, we are going to use this command. Firstly, I am using a for loop to iterate through the data which is present inside the cursor by executing this command. So the command says select star from the pets. So all the data from the pets table will go inside the cursor, and then we are going to iterate inside the cursor and print each row which is present inside it. Now let's go ahead and run this. So you can see that the 2 rows that we inserted using this execute many functions have been successfully inserted. So when we iterated through the table using the cursor, so it displayed us the 2 rows that we inserted. Another most important thing to remember is that once you are done with your work, you need to close the connection because we'll no longer need it. So you need to add connection.close at the end of your file. Now let's see how you can import the data from some file into your table, and for that we are going to use the pandas library of Python. So I'm going to use import pandas as PD because I'm going to use these initials. And in order to use this library, I have already inserted it into my project. So once you have imported pandas, Now you have to come down and use the data frame object, and inside it I'm gonna use the pandas object and use it read_csv function because I am going to import the data from the CSV file. So let's quickly see the data. This is my pets file and it has the same columns just like I created the column inside the table, and these are all the records which are present inside it. So inside this read_csv function, you have to pass the path of the file which you want to insert inside the table. So I'm gonna paste the path here. Then you have to use this command in which we are using the data frame objects to SQL function. And inside this function, you have to provide 4 different things. First thing is the table name inside which you want to insert the data from the file. Then you have to provide the connection that will have the data about connecting with the database. Then you have the option for the if exists. So if exists is going to decide what should happen if the table by this name already exists. So if the table by the same name exists and if you have passed append to it, then it is going to append the new data in the table without overwriting the data which is currently present inside the table. And then you have to set the index to false in order to prevent the indexing of the table. So before running the project again, I'm gonna go back and delete this database file because all of the instructions are going to run again and it will give us the error that the database in the table already exists. Now if I copy these 2 statements from here, let's say I cut it and then I'm gonna paste it below these statements, and now if I run this, you are going to see that it will show us all the data which we have loaded from our pets.csv file inside the table. So this means that our data has been successfully loaded from the file into the table. So using this command, you see that we are actually selecting and displaying all of the records from a table. So what if you want to display any particular record on the basis of certain conditions? Then for that you also have to use the cursor object and use the execute method of the cursor. Now inside this method you have to pass the command on the basis of which you want to select the row. So I'm gonna say select star from pet where age is greater than 7. So I want to fetch all of the records where the age of the pet is greater than 7. Now let's quickly delete it before executing our project. And in order to show you that it is selected the row where the age is 7, I'm gonna cut it from here, paste it here, and then I am going to remove this command. So now it is going to iterate only through the cursor, and the cursor has this execute command. Now let's go ahead and run the file. It has given us certain rows. Now let's verify that the age for all the rows that are returned to us is greater than 7. This means that it has fetched all the records where the age was greater than 7. So this was a scenario when you have a single table inside your database, but in most scenarios you have more than one table inside the database. So let's go ahead and create a new table. So I'm going to use cursor.execute command, inside which I'm going to create a table by the name owners. And these are all the columns that are present inside the table. And if you notice that the owners table has a field owner ID which was also present inside the pets table. So this owner ID in pets acts as a foreign key for the owners table. So once you will execute it, it is going to create owners table for us. Just like I have imported the data from pets.csv file into the table, I also have a file called owners.csv having all these columns. So I'm going to import the data from the CSV file into the owners table like we did previously. Now let's quickly see whether the data has been successfully imported inside our owners table or not. So I'm going to cut these commands, and inside this I'm going to say cursor.execute, and inside the execute function I'm going to pass the command select star from owners to get all the data which is present inside the owners table. Now let's go ahead and run the project, and you can see that it has fetched all the data which has been loaded from the CSV file into the owners table. So now let's say that you want to show the data of the owner of each pet. So the pets table only contains the data about the pet and has a field for the owner ID. Then we have a separate table for the owners having the information about the owner. So let's say that we want to fetch the data for each pet about its owner. How can you do that? This can be simply done by using a simple join statement. So let's see how you can do it. For that, once again, I'm going to use the cursor and I'm going to call the execute function of the cursor. Inside the execute function, we have to pass a select statement. So I'm gonna say select t1.petid and t2.static from pets as t1 and owners as t2. And after that, I'm gonna use a join statement to join t1 and t2. So instead of comma here, I'm going to say join from pets as t1, join owners as t2. And then we have to specify the condition on the basis of which you want to join. So you have to write join on. And the condition is that the owner ID in the pets table is equal to the owner ID in the owners table. So we are going to say t1 dot owner ID is equal to t2 dot owner ID. Right? So once this is done, once again, I'm gonna cut it from here, place the indentation, paste it here, and I'm going to remove these lines from here. And once we execute the command, all the data that satisfy the condition will come to the cursor, and then we are going to iterate through the cursor to show you the results. Let's quickly run this. It has fetched us the data. So the first column represents the pet ID, the second column represents the owner ID, and the further column represent the owner information. So let's verify it from our pets file. So this is my pets.csv file. For the pet ID J68562, which is the first record, the owner ID was 5168. And then if I go to my owners table, you can see that for the owner having ID 5168, the name is Robert and the surname is Foster, and same data has been fetched for the owner from the pet ID. Perfect. So it means that we have successfully manipulated both the tables of our SQLite database and have combined them to get the data from both of these. And that's all for this video. I hope you like this one, and I'll see you in some other videos. Thank you.